Dong was surprised by his answer and asked for an explanation. He said that if she had revealed herself in the beginning, he would never have had the chance to be with her in the same dorm, and they would never have formed such a beautiful fusion if they didn't live together. He also realized the reason why she always scolded him whenever he wanted to shower or sleep together. They both laughed, reminding themselves of their past while heading back to the dorms. They decided not to sleep in the same room as before, because their relationship was not of brotherhood now. They were now officially dating each other. Therefore, it was immoral to sleep in the same room. Before heading back to their dorms, Yoo-hoo also praised her for her veil-dropping act when he came back to the academy. However, Dong didn't understand what he said and asked about the details. He thought that she might be acting dumb, so he told her the complete story. She was surprised by what he said because she didn't do whatever he said. She was curious whether there was another girl with the same fake name as she mentioned to Yoo. However, upon denial from her, Yoo-hoo admitted that he might have been daydreaming, so they ignored it. When they reached the dorms, they greeted each other and went their separate ways. But before separation, Yoo-hoo ran toward Dong, and before he could do anything, she hugged him instead. She told him not to worry about her and give their relationship some time. Both of them knew that changing the relationship from brotherhood to romance, they would have to give it some time. Yoo-hoo was sad because of it because Dong was the only person who understood him completely, and that's why he didn't want to lose her. Therefore, the only best option was to give each other some personal space while they normalized their relationship. They both agreed and decided to take their time. Before heading back, Dong handed over a mysterious bag to Yoo-hoo. When he asked her about it, she said that it was given to her by the Sky Sect leader and was told to give the bag to Yoo-hoo when she acknowledged her. However, she wasn't allowed to see the contents of the bag, and neither was Yoo-hoo allowed to. It was sealed with the mental power spell by the leader of Sky Sect. Dong told Yoo-hoo that if he tried to open it by force, then it would shatter into pieces. The only way to open the bag was to overcome the caster's mental spell with his own mental spell. When Yoo-hoo tried to undo the mental spell, he failed miserably because the cultivation and the mental power of the caster was overwhelmingly times higher than his. Therefore, he kept the bag with him until he could open it. After that, both Yoo-hoo and Dong went to their respective rooms and promised to see one another when they were able to normalize their relationship. The next morning, Yoo-hoo woke up expectantly happy while mumbling Dong's name repeatedly. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door and he went to open it. As he was half asleep, he had only one person in mind to be at the door, which was Wang Dong. When he opened the door, Principal Yan was standing there while Yoo-hoo was still mumbling his lover's name. Principal Yan scolded him and asked him whether he lost his mind after last night's event. Yoo-hoo finally came to his senses and asked for forgiveness. However, the principal congratulated him for his victory and also teasingly told him that he and Xuan already knew about her true gender. Yoo-hoo was shocked to hear this and felt betrayed. When he asked the principal why they did that, he replied that it was because Dong was probably the next heir of the Sky Sect, therefore, they couldn't afford to leak their secrecy. Principal Yan then invited him to the Poseidon Pavilion to meet with the higher-ups of the academy to discuss the techniques he used last night. Yoo-hoo accepted the invitation and went to the pavilion after changing his clothes. When he reached the pavilion, he saw that every one of the higher members of the academy was sitting at a round table. Yoo-hoo entered the pavilion and greeted everyone. They also greeted and congratulated him for his victory the previous night. After that, Xuan asked Yoo-hoo to show them his unique spirit rings. He agreed happily and called forth his Snow Empress. However, when the Snow Empress appeared, she immediately raised her guard and pointed toward a faculty member while shouting something. The Empress flew right toward Xuan and used a spell in midair. Everyone, including Yoo-hoo, was shocked by her behavior. They thought that the Empress was trying to attack Xuan. However, the spirit technique she cast wasn't harmful. It was actually a beautiful bouquet of flowers made of ice to show her gratitude. Everyone took a sigh of relief and laughed at her unexpected behavior. After such an unexpected show of spirit power, everyone became even more interested in the Empress. Yoo-hoo started explaining the Empress's nature by explaining that his orange gold ring actually originated from it. He then said that to further explain its origin, he had to tell them everything from the beginning along with his personal secrets, as both of them were connected. Xuan and others were dumbfounded to hear that he still had some secrets left. However, Yoo-hoo knew that in order to explain the spirit soul, he had to tell them the secret of Yilai Ki Si. He told them everything, excluding the part where he met the daydream ice worm, from leaving home to getting injured in Duo Forest and meeting the Holy Light deity. He told them that when he was in danger on top of the ice-chill Chalcedony bed, he fused the Snow Empress, an unprecedented existence, with the aid of Yilai Ki Si's ascended mind's flame. Yoo-hoo then answered every question that Xuan and other elders asked about the Empress. He also mentioned that having an equally powerful spirit soul was the best method, because it didn't require killing the spirit beast, and also depended on the willingness of the spirit beast. Xuan was impressed by his findings and way of thinking. He praised Yu Hu and said that it would change the structure of the Spirit Master's world. He also ordered a secret research on the spirit souls and told Xiaoji to fully cooperate with Yu Hu in the research. However, Yu Hu stopped Xuan and told him that he wanted to conduct an open research in the Academy's lab facilities under the look of the Academy. Everyone was shocked to hear that Yu Hu was willing to share the methods of creating soul spirits with the Academy. Xuan told him to reconsider his decision as it was too precious and that he had already done too much for the Academy by providing blueprints of the spirit devices. However, Yu Hu denied and said that he was an orphan back in the day, and the only place that gave him shelter, food, friends, and everything was Shrek Academy. Therefore, he wanted to repay his debt. He said that he was also doing this to save his own skin, as if people came to know that only he had the method to create such a powerful spirit soul, then they would come after him. Xuan and everyone else praised his idea and way of thinking and accepted his proposal after insisting so much. Therefore, Yu Hu contributed the information under Mu Luo's name. Before ending the pavilion's meeting, Xuan announced one last thing. He said that as he was the current Poseidon Pavilion's master, he appointed Yu Hu as his successor. Yu Hu was absolutely shocked to hear such unexpected news. He tried to convince Xuan that he wasn't worthy of such a title, but Xuan denied that he was the most capable and worthy person for such a title, even more than him, and that Mu Luo also wanted him to become the next successor. When Yu Hu heard Mu's name, he was surprised because he always thought that elder senior sister Le Xuan would be the successor. However, Master Xuan told him that he wasn't the only one to make decisions. Therefore, Xuan conducted elections and told everyone to raise their hand if they saw him fit for the position. Everyone, including elder sister, raised their hands, and therefore he was unanimously elected as the successor. Xuan told him that they wouldn't disclose his position temporarily, but his position wouldn't be as simple as just a member of the pavilion. His responsibilities were also increased with the position. Yu Hu also accepted his position because he realized that Mu Luo had too many expectations from him, and in order to fulfill those expectations, he had to work hard whatever the outcome was. Later, Yu Hu and Principal Yan were talking to each other outside the pavilion. Principal Yan told Yu Hu that he was going to capture some spirit beasts for research. He also warned him that they had to do it carefully so that no one would get harmed. While they were talking, Yu Hu sensed that someone was eavesdropping on them from behind the wall. It was Dong who was watching them. When Yu Hu looked back, she quickly hid herself. However, her hair were still visible. Principal Yan sighed and told Yu Hu to meet her, and also told him to take good care of her, as she was strong, the inheritor of the Clear Sky sect, and was the most suitable significant other for him. Principal Yan then left to do his work and left both Yu Hu and Dong alone. When Yu Hu saw her again, he was stunned by her beauty once again, like it was his first time seeing her. However, Dong told him that she brought some food for him. Yu Hu was extremely happy to see the exquisite food she made for him. Without wasting any time, he sat down and started to devour the tasty food. Dong then told him to finish his food fast so that they could go. When Yu Hu asked where they were going, she replied that they were going to find the other Wang Qiu that Yu Hu mentioned on the event night. Yu Hu had almost forgotten about it, but Dong was curious from the moment she heard that. She told him that the new batch of students were going to enter the inner academy the following day, therefore, they could find her there. Hence, they went to the outer academy. On their way, Yu Hu suddenly got lost in thoughts. Dong noticed it and asked him what was the matter. He replied that he remembered the time when they entered the academy at first and met Sister. She was able to fly flawlessly, and now when they were able to do the same, then Sister went missing. He told Dong that he missed Sister too much. However, they finally got to the outer academy. When the new students saw Dong walking by and holding hands with Yu Hu, they were stunned by her beauty. As Dong was attracting so much attention, Yu Hu told her to put on a veil in the future because her beauty was causing too much commotion. However, she asked him teasingly whether he didn't want her to be prettied up for him. While they were having a conversation, suddenly a teacher shouted at them, which scared them to death. The teacher was scolding them for being lovey-dovey on the school grounds. He told them to study hard in school and not to engage in romantic relations until graduation. He said that his name was Zhengzhan and was a home teacher of the outer academy. He thought that they were outer school students like every other, therefore he didn't hold back a single word. While Yu Hu was apologizing continuously, he also admired Zheng and felt a strange sense of intimacy from him because he reminded him of his teacher, Mrs. Zhou. Zheng asked Yu Hu to tell him which class he studied in and who was his class teacher. Yu Hu replied that he and Dong both were Mrs. Zhou's students. When Zheng heard it, the ground under his feet slipped right away. He panicked to death because he knew that Mrs. Zhou was a dangerous and short-tempered lady. He scolded Yu Hu once again for not telling him earlier before he called her. As the water had already passed over their heads, Zhang came up with an idea that he would tell Mrs. Zhou that he kept them occupied because he wanted them to do some work for him. Yuhu agreed with the idea. However, the only problem was that Dong didn't know about the plan, as she was busy looking for another Wang Qiu. Suddenly, Mrs. Zhou arrived while shouting, asking which fool dared to detain her student. When Yuhu and Dong saw their ex-teacher, they immediately went to greet her and offer their gratitude. When Mrs. Zhou saw them after a long time, she was emotional for a moment. But then right after it, she kicked Yuhu hilariously and scolded both of them because they hadn't met in the past 2 years. She was also angry at Wang Dong because she hid her identity from her too. While she was scolding them, Mr. Zheng was trembling from fear because he thought that Zhou might destroy their careers. On the contrary, it was Mrs. Zhou's way of showing affection. However, Zheng stepped forward and tried to calm her down. She was confused by his behavior and asked whether he was the one who detained her students. Before he could say anything, Yuhu replied that it was their fault and they already apologized to Teacher Zheng. As the matter was already solved, Mrs. Zhou took her leave from Zheng and also told him that she would deal with Yuhu and Dong herself. By hearing that, Zheng became even more frightened and stopped Mrs. Zhou, as he thought that she was going to punish them alone. He asked Mrs. Zhou to forgive them and to lower her temper because it could cause the students to become rebellious. She knew that he misunderstood her, so she decided to tease him a little and said that beating was affection and scolding was love. As a result, Zheng became even more terrified and so threatened her that he would report her violence to the upper committee. Zhou finally tried to cool down the situation and told him that she was only kidding and that she was only scolding them because of her affection towards them. She also told him that they weren't any outer academy students. Instead, they were the core members of Shrek Academy's inter-high school Spirit Master tournament. Teacher Zheng was dumbfounded by her words because he didn't think that someone that young could enter the inner academy. After resolving their dispute, Zheng finally realized that the whole crowd of new students were watching them. Therefore, he asked Mrs. Zhou to make an excuse to the students. Upon some thought, she told him an excuse, and Zheng went to address it to the students. He told them that Yuhu and Dong were actually inner academy students, and were holding hands just to practice their mutual spirit fusion. That's why they weren't guilty of doing ill-mannered things. The students were shocked and surprised at the same time by his excuse. Some didn't believe him at all. After that commotion, Yuhu, Dong, and Mrs. Zhou went to roam around the academy. While they were roaming, Yuhu told Mrs. Zhou that they actually wanted to go to the inner academy student registration office. She replied that she would take them to the office herself before they were detained again by some other teacher. Therefore, all three of them went to the registration office. When they got there, Yuhu overheard a conversation where the registrar was telling a student to remove her veil because it was necessary for the faculty to know the student's identity. She asked whether it was necessary for enrollment. When Yuhu heard her voice, he immediately noticed that it was the same girl's voice he met that day. Despite her insisting, the registration teacher didn't listen to her and said that they wouldn't give her enrollment if she didn't reveal her true identity. Thus, she didn't have any choice but to surrender and remove her veil. Meanwhile, Yuhu rushed toward the office from where the voices were coming. Mrs. Zhou and Dong didn't understand at first why he started to run suddenly. However, they also followed him to the office. When Yuhu reached there, he was glad to see that he found Wang Qiu at last. She looked at him and asked why he was looking at her. However, without giving a reply, he turned his back and waited for Dong to come. When Dong came, everyone was shocked to see that both Qiu and Dong looked alike, and asked them whether they were siblings. Both of them were shocked too to see each other's identity. However, they confirmed that they didn't have any siblings. However, Qiu also realized that Yuhu was the boy who was chasing her that day, so she asked him why he did that. Yuhu replied that it was a misunderstanding, as he thought that she was Dong. Qiu then asked them to leave if they didn't have any other business with her. Therefore, all three of them left the office. When they came out of the office, Dong was lost in thoughts and told Yuhu and Mrs. Zhou that something was off. Yuhao told her that she should write a letter to her uncle and aunt to confirm whether she had any other siblings. She replied that she was absolutely sure that she was the only child, and also Qiu's spirit energy was different from hers, so they couldn't be siblings. Yuhu was still curious and asked how it was possible for two people to have the same faces, but not be blood-related. Mrs. Zhou replied that there had been many occurrences of people having the same face, but different bloodlines in the past, so it was possible. After putting aside their doubts, Mrs. Zhou and Yuhu went to eat lunch and talked about the events that happened during the past 2 years. While they were having a good teacher-student time, Dong suddenly entered the hall with heavy steps. Both Yuhu and Zhou noticed her and asked what happened. She frighteningly replied that she had confirmed the spirit essence of Qiu and found out that her spirit essence was of long instinct golden dragon. Both of them were shocked by Dong's answer because the golden dragon was the ancestor of strength. The legend said that the Dragon Lord had two children, one silver dragon who had control over the elements, and one was the golden dragon who had control over strength. All the others till the current day were known to be their descendants.